Good morning and welcome to our next installment of the new normal in government contracting. Although I'm not so sure at this point, we're not getting closer to the normal in government contracting these days. I want to welcome our guest today, Gloria Larkin, the President and CEO of TargetGov, a very good friend of mine as well. And thank you for being with us again. This is Gloria's second appearance with us, and we're so appreciative. And thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Courtney. I'm delighted to be here.
For the last 25 years, TargetGov has been providing business development expert consulting services and products and have helped their clients obtain more than $20 billion in government contract awards. So we are going to tap into Gloria's expertise today. We're going to talk about something called the MRAS, and we'll tell you a little bit more exactly about what that is. But I want to take a step back. When we first talked last, Gloria, we were really in what I would consider more of the new normal in terms of trying to figure out how to navigate business and more specifically federal contracting as in a different place. And now that we are in another year, almost 2 full years in, I thought I'd ask you what changes you anticipate being made this year and next in terms of how we conduct specifically federal business development in our industry.
The changes that have been happening, spurred on by the pandemic, have really separated serious contractors from those who are just dipping their toes in. For those serious contractors who have really jumped in with both feet and are making all efforts to see results in the federal space, they're having their best years ever. Their growth is off the charts. But on the flip side, it's really caused a fallout of those contractors that were struggling and really not sure of what to do in the federal government marketplace. So in one way, there's fewer contractors that are active and seeing results, but those who are still here are seeing potentially extraordinary revenue out of the federal space.
That's a really good point. And it's probably just a microcosm of business in general, right? If you were already having problems or not so successful, COVID wasn't going to help anybody and maybe only push that issue a little further as opposed to those that were firmly entrenched and know what they're offering and what they're doing and know their customers, right?
Knowing their customers, but I will say, we've seen newcomers to the federal space be successful. So it's not just firmly entrenched folks. It's folks who are serious about making the commitment to what it takes to be successful in the federal space. So I don't want to mislead people and say, well, it's not worth it unless I'm already in there with a ton of contracts already, especially for what we're going to talk about today. This is really opening up the door to newcomers to the federal space who are willing to do what they need to do, as well as those who have been here for a few years.
Well, that's a great lead in. Let's jump into our topic of the day. We recently posted your blog post on our site regarding the GSA MRAS. So let's start with you telling us a little bit more about what that acronym is for those of us that are not familiar and a little bit about the program.
So I'm going to venture a guess that no one knows what the heck this is because
I didn't know.
It is so new, but its impact is massive in the federal space. And MRAS, welcome to the land of acronyms. We say it MRAS. Even the government calls it MRAS. MRAS stands for Market Research as a Service. What is that? So market research is mandated by the FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations, meaning that government must reach out to industry and do the research to find out what companies are out there that can do what they need and what kind of improvements do they suggest and how can they get their services and products better, faster, cheaper, more securely, etc. So this market research as a service is baked into the federal government contracting process. But what happened in the last few years that is pretty shocking is that over 43% of government personnel have retired out. So there's 43% fewer people in contracting and acquisition to do the work. But the spend keeps on going up and up and up. And so the government is saying, how are we going to do this market research when we don't even have time to manage the existing contracts we have? Does that make sense?
It does. So did GSA figure out a way to help the government agencies?
On their I would say, riding in on their white horse, the GSA came up with magic market research as a service. So what this means is that the GSA is going to do this for free for government agencies. They are going to perform all of the market research on the upcoming opportunities if that agency signs up with them. And they're not going to charge them a dime. So they're going to get hundreds of hours of work per contract for free if they sign, if let's say the Army needs some sort of services provided. If they sign up with GSA to do the market research for them, to reach out to industry, to ask who's out there that can do what we need, and then tabulate all the results and put them in some sort of report that makes it easy for the Army decision makers to determine, is this a set aside? Is this full and open? What contract vehicle are we using? The Army, Health and Human Services, all of DOD, even intel agencies now have a whole bunch of free work that's going to be done on their behalf and satisfy the FAR in the market research process.
So how does GSA go about doing that? Who are they polling for this market research and what's their process?
So this is where it gets very, very interesting. Originally, GSA, when they first came out with this, and I was on the early side of this because we were actually communicating with the architects of this service. And this was 3 years ago through how they were coming up with it. We were giving feedback on it. So we were pretty much entrenched with how this was being developed. So early on, they developed a data scraping tool, a robot, RPA, robotic process automation, where they would scrape all of the federal databases to find the federal contractors who could do this niche type of service or provide this niche type of product. And it was extremely effective. But GSA got smarter because instead of reaching out to the entire world and data scraping everybody, they will provide, this is now adapted through the last 18 months to 24 months. Instead of scraping all contractors, now what has happened is that whenever an agency like Army or Health and Human Services goes to GSA and says, yeah, we want you to do this market research for free for us and figure out who's out there, et cetera. GSA says, yeah, we're happy to do that for you, but you have to agree that we are going to only reach out to GSA schedule holders. Wow. And the vehicle will be the GSA schedule.
Wow. So as a federal agency, I can avoid doing all of that work, but I'm agreeing that we are saying we're going to put this through the GSA multiple award schedule.
Yes. And you know what's
Wow.
happened in just the last 18, 24 months? The GSA schedule use has gone up by 18%, which
Wow.
is now at the highest it's ever been. Over $40 billion was done recently through GSA, the highest it's ever been since GSA schedules were started.
Yeah, I think the year before was 36 or 38 billion. That's incredible. So GSA has found a way to drive business to the people that are willing to get on the GSA multiple award schedule. That's
Exactly.
really fascinating. And it's also interesting because I am always telling people that GSA schedules are not an opportunity identification tool. They're an opportunity closure tool. And this really changes that to a certain extent. I've never encouraged contractors to actively seek GSA schedules in order to locate opportunities. And this increase through the MRAS really may change that dramatically over time, especially because when you lose 43% of your workforce, that can't be replaced overnight. This isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
Right. So, or is it? Let me ask you, what are your predictions? How does this sort of move forward? And what does it mean for federal contractors, opportunities, and what should people be thinking about when they're looking at the MRAS system?
So this is a motivator for any company who offers a service or a product that could be on the multiple award schedule through GSA to get on it. This is one of the most definitive motivators, because now you're witnessing this happen through the announcements that come through you on behalf of your clients, that the GSA is now very aggressive on market research processes. And the fact that they're using robotic tools to do this. They can accomplish this market research in such a short period of time. It is no longer labor intensive as it was. You can imagine, if an agency put out a sources, let's say the FBI put out a sources sought notice and they get 35 responses, how much labor that would take in order to sort through all 35 responses and determine who's viable, who's not, et cetera. Well, now that's all done robotically, and it can be done in a fraction of the time. So that trend of using the MRAS and funneling business to GSA schedules is a game changer for those companies already on the schedule, as well as those considering the schedule.
Yeah, one of the things that comes to my mind is previously we were just concerned with getting companies listed on the GSA schedule contract and not where and how many different places they were listed, right? So one of the things that has really come up for our clients because of this over the last 2 years is we have to reach. We've got to make sure we have the right special item numbers. We have to make sure that we are, listing the right services and the right products, because as you say, and I know TargetGov helps with this, but we have to be sure that the scrape is going to pull us as well.
Right.
If we're not sitting I always call it nurturing the contract. The GSA schedule is not something you obtain once and leave on the shelf for 20 years. You have to nurture it. You have to continue to add. You have to continue and make sure that it grows with the company so that you can come up in these type of searches, right?
And you're so right. And you and I lived through this just recently with a mutual client who had a unique service that did not fit conveniently into a particular category. So how do we convince GSA that they still needed to adapt? But you are perfectly positioned to do exactly that. The other element to this is constantly staying on top of what your customers are asking for. Because if let's say, for instance, you're providing IT services. Well, IT services for FBI will be focused on certain keywords and phrases, whereas IT services for Centers for Medicaid and Medicare are going to be focused on an entirely different set of keywords and phrases. So these are just as critical to your success in being found by these data scraping tools as having the right schedule, SIN, or category.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming you're helping companies with those determinations and where to put the keywords and what the keywords are and all of those sorts of things.
Absolutely. We can make sense out of it all and help you be found by those data scraping tools.
The whole idea that someone will actually literally find a contractor as opposed to the contractor, it's so anti what we have taught for so many years. And I think it's fascinating if you're doing it right. And a great savings in business development efforts. If you put your thoughts into how you are positioned in that way to be found, then you can use some of your dollars for things like the bid and proposal and some of the other technology type stuff that I think will be really important. So tell us, for our viewers, how do we get in touch with you? Let's assume that we need some help with this. We want to help think through how we can be located, and we want to know more about TargetGov's offering. How do we get in touch with you?
The easiest way, directly through our website, which is targetgov.com. And you can call us, of course. We're here. We're manning the phones. Actually, we are working in office as well as across the United States. So no matter where you are located, we are here to help you. We would look forward to talking to you.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you being with us. This is such a shift in fundamental business process and thought for federal business development. And you brought it to us. I can't tell you how much we appreciate being on the cusp of this and understanding it, because it makes a difference for how our clients are going to move forward or not with the GSA schedule. So we appreciate that. I am going to let you have the last thought of the day for our audience.
Well, the key to success in the federal government marketplace is becoming proactive in reaching out to your targets. If you think that having a schedule is going to automatically drive business to you, you will see business success much, much faster if you are actually being proactive in reaching out to the targets. Then they can write that requirement around you and shape it around what your company brings to the table. So the more proactive you can be, the more successful and the higher your revenue will be, and we'd love to help you.
What a great point. Thanks again so much, Gloria, for being with us today. And thanks to all of you for spending your time with us this morning. We will look forward to seeing you on our next installment of The New Normal in Government Contracting. Have a good day.